Hello, everyone. I'm Alex, founder and CEO of Craftsman Plus. So we're going to talk about Playables today. Security alert, just in case if anyone's wondering. But typically, Playables, I noticed that like in Playtika's presentation, they said 3% of their budget's playable. And some of the reasons for this is it's expensive to build, it takes dev resources. No developers have extra dev resources, and if you're a brand, typically you don't have friends that are developers that can build you ad units on the spot to go run across these different ad channels. So they've been pretty difficult to actually run and test and get started on. Yep, okay, cool, there we go. So we're gonna talk about like who runs Playables, where are they running, what works for them, how it works, why, and some parts of the future. I'm gonna leave room for questions at the end, so I'm gonna kind of fly through this and let you guys ask a bunch of questions. But usually people think Playables, they think, okay, it's gotta just be for a game, and they don't know if there's any other use cases. There's tons of other use cases. So over COVID, everyone became a gamer, and now all these brands want to start advertising in games. So you see, Anzu just raised 48 million last week. Roblox is blowing up with all these brand activations. So more brands want to get into gaming, and they want to reach gamers the best way possible via a game. So it makes a lot of sense. So more brands are pouring into this space. Games, it makes sense because you get to play a little game before you actually download it. You get to like demo before you download. It's like driving a car before you actually go purchase it. So where do these Playables work? There's a bunch of channels that accept Playables, but actually the only channels that we've seen really work are SDK networks and partners like AppLovin, IronSource, Unity, Vungle. Anything in like the rewarded video placements typically work, even though we're partners on TikTok, Meta, and we love those guys. Playables typically don't work there. So if you're going to do a Playable campaign, focus on SDK networks and focus on rewarded video placements. So the what, what typically works? There's a lot of best practices out there, so I won't spend too much time on this. But the main thing I'll say is when I talk to people, they'll say, Playables, we've tried them, didn't work for us. I'm like, okay, cool. How many Playables did you test? They're like, we did one for the month, tried it, didn't work. I'm like, okay, how many videos did you run that same month? They're like, 40. I'm like, all right. So like, if you ran one video, would it have worked? Like typically the hit rate on creative is maybe 10%. So if you're running 10 videos, maybe one works. So same thing on Playables. Like you want to test a lot of Playables, but going back to the issue, it's really expensive to build Playables. So how can you actually get that volume? But that's what you're going to need to actually test and drive performance with them. File size is super important. So file size used to be like 1 megabyte on Google, 2 megabytes on Facebook, and you'd get these kind of like, not so great looking interactive ads. And then they evolved and they added up to 5 megabytes in file size. So pretty much everywhere you get 5 megabytes to do an interactive ad. Although that's great, we've actually found that the ideal file size for Playables is 3 megabytes, like 3 or under. It loads quicker, there's less lag, drives higher performance. So, I'll show you a case study right after this, but like the file size actually really matters to drive performance. Ideal length, we're seeing Playables work as playable end cards. So that means we'd actually, in that rewarded video placement, user opts in, watches a 30-second video, and then afterwards, a Playable would actually appear as the end card that you could play and just get a little demo from. That's typically the highest performing placement that we've seen work. And ideal length, it's pretty short, like a few taps, few clicks, just drive engagement, get users involved. First 2 seconds, critical, everyone kind of knows that. And then again, back to the volume of concepts. So going back to what worked, again, I loved seeing Playtika. They said 2.9% of their spend is Playables, and obviously they spend a ton of money. This company, Live Play, they got bought by Triple Dot Studios. 3% of their ad spend was Playables when we met them. Ask them the same questions. Hey, how many Playables you run versus video? They're like 100 times as many videos as Playables. We do 1 Playable a month, get 3% of our spend is Playable. I'm like, okay, cool. What if we do 5 Playables a month, test a bunch of different concepts, and actually optimize this file size down from 5 megabytes to 3? What happens? Literally in 4 weeks, 88% of their budget on AppLovin shifted to Playables. It was nuts. Like, I've only seen 5 companies spend 80% of their budget on Playables. Usually it's like 10 to 20% maybe. But 88% from 3% in 4 weeks. I mean, it was wild to see that type of growth. But that's just because they didn't have enough concepts and they didn't optimize their file size. So like, how do you actually go build that? Like, how do you optimize file size and how do you build enough concepts? the way we kind of thought about it was when I first saw Playables, I was an early on employee at AppLovin, so it was like number 20, 25. And I built out the SSP. So I plugged in all the DSP partners to AppLovin, and I saw one of the partners doing Playables. And at first I thought it was fraud because the IPMs and results looked really good. So I'm like, got to kick some DSP off the platform because it's not working that well, and they're probably cheating the system. Then I found out these were actually Playable units, and I figured out, I was like, how do they build these? And they were just using developers. So they outsourced to Ukraine, used a bunch of developers to build Playables. And like that was their patch. So I thought, hey, like web development used to be hard, and companies like Squarespace and Wix came out to like make web development easier. These are all just HTML5 ads. Why don't I build like the Squarespace meets Unity of the new space so that designers can build Playables and you don't need your development resources to actually go build. So that was the kind of idea behind Craftsman Plus and what we launched. So like why like going into the why do Playables? Because they work. You just have to find the right partners, the right testing methods. But I thought this was actually really interesting. We did the keynote with DraftKings at the App Pro Summit in Austin last year, and their time to install was a super important metric to them. So when they were thinking about driving incrementality, like what ad units actually drive incrementality? Some users only click on statics, some only videos, some only playables. And what they found was that playables drove like twice as fast time to install. And so when you're thinking of like attribution windows and potentially like sniping organics and certain ad units, you know, like static ads more like taking organics, like playables were the least likely to snipe organics. And so from that time to install graph, DraftKings has leaned heavily into playables and interactive ads as part of their business. There's a bunch of case studies online about playables. The truth is like it's hit or miss with a lot of people, and you got to test the right things, but there are some massive successes out there. So future. Like I said, I think brands are going to get way more into the space. Everyone became a gamer over COVID. Everyone wants to get into gaming. So now brands are trying to gamify everything. Like one of our partners is Duolingo. They gamify education. Their business is going pretty well. And it's like, how do we gamify the ads to get people in the funnel? Gamification metrics coming into apps. So instead of just using it as UA, we actually partner with Hopper, the travel app, and they do playable ads in Hopper. So when you're booking like your travel site, you can play a little mini game that's powered by our engine so that they can drive higher retention. UGC has been a cool trend. So like I think this was the first playable on TikTok. Again, TikTok playables don't really work that well. But if you were gonna try it, you know, like I think this was one of the first ones that was ran. But user-generated content. So big trend, obviously all you guys know it's working well for a lot of placements. But have you ever seen like UGC playables? Probably not. And there's a reason for that. There's not been like, one, I just don't think that many people have thought about it. But two, also there hasn't been like a platform or resource to really test that. And that's kind of what we've been able to do. It's like, hey, any piece of content that you have, we can take it, make it interactive, allow you to run it across any channel. And when you see like a trend, like one of those like dress up concepts, like what character mine like dresses up into a different concept, or like they like click their shoe and it changes into a whole different outfit. All that stuff, you can throw it into playables, add interactions on top of it, throw some gameplay in there too, and then start running it and testing it. So the power of these like tools and platforms that are out there is speed. So when there's a trend, you can capture that trend, get on top of it, and actually run an interactive ad to meet that trend. I just keep thinking like interactivity is the future. Like I think playables and this whole space is kind of bridging the gap between like, you know, the whole world going into VR, like Facebook changing to Meta and all those types of things. I think this is the scalable bridge where like not everyone has a headset to go like full immersive content, but you can actually do a lot of really cool things with playables on ads themselves right now. And the other cool thing is when you do playable ads, you can actually know why a user clicked. So when you watch a video, it's like a 30-second video, you don't know why someone clicked. There could be a dog, there could be a cat. Maybe I like the dog, you guys like the cat, you clicked for the cat, clicked for the dog, but we don't know. We just know user 123 clicked on the ad. With playables, I can see, oh, I like the dog. Like I'm a dog person, so I clicked on the dog. And then you can start tracking this data. And now in the world where like data is so hard to come by, like having this ability to track what's actually going on your ads and the why, which is also what the Playtika team talked about, like why are people clicking? Like this will literally tell you what happened, like why did they actually click? So not sure how much time we have, but I just wanted to open it up, make it super casual, let you guys ask some questions. It's not too loud, so it could be easy, but yeah.
You can scream with the microphone.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for your talk.
my question is how do you track the interaction inside the Playable? So do you have any analytics of different events inside or not?
Okay, good.
Yeah, so great question. So it's all dependent on the platforms. So like when I was at AppLovin, you know, if there was a huge advertiser that was spending a ton of money, we wanted to capture that. So let's say like Apple comes to us and says, hey, we want to do interactive ads. We would open up our platform and allow these third-party calls to happen. So I could actually track what users are doing, click on it. You can even progressively load content that way. So what I think like the future is going to be is you'll have like a playable ad that will be level 1 or tutorial. And after you get through it, you'll just deep link them in, post that unit, so you can just go to level 2 immediately and do that content. So it's really dependent, like my company at least is dependent on those other platforms to allow us to do these third-party calls. Some parties don't, like Facebook doesn't really like it. But some parties, like Google is actually pretty cool about it. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do on Google's platform. So it just depends on the platform, like which ones. But usually the networks are more open to it because they kind of have to be competitive with Facebook, Google, because they're trying to take market share. So if you're a big advertiser and you're like, hey, I want to track what's going on with my ads, they'll usually let you do it.